Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Found in Interpretation Podcast. Once again, I'm one of your co-hosts, Alain Breton, and I'm here with Brian. Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing really great, especially since we're here with my good friend Carmen, and we're ready for another episode.
All right, so everyone, don't forget, like, share, subscribe, and let's kick it. All right, we're here with Carmen. Carmen is a conference interpreter, English, French, and Spanish. She is based in Montreal. She has over 25 years experience, and she does interpretation for Radio Canada, especially the French network. So it's called RDI for those of you who don't know, who may not be Canadian. So
Le réseau de
RDI.
l'information.
Exactly. And we get to hear her voice during press conferences and among other things. Am I right?
Yes.
How did you get there?
How did I get to specifically Radio Canada, CBC?
Well, maybe we can take a few steps back.
Yeah.
And how did you become an interpreter, actually?
How did I become an interpreter? Well, actually, I sometimes like to say that, I think I've told this story before, but I sometimes like to say that I became an interpreter when my grandmother moved to Quebec from Chile, because my entire family comes from Chile. And my grandmother arrived at 60-some years of age, lived with us, and didn't speak any French. And at the time in Quebec City, there weren't that many foreigners around, and we used to go to the grocery store, and my grandmother was a very petite woman, but she had so much personality, and she wasn't scared. And she wasn't scared of ridicule, which is not the case of a 4 or 5-year-old child. So she would, want chicken. She started cackling like a chicken. She pretended that she lay eggs if she wanted to buy eggs. And I was so embarrassed that I quickly learned to anticipate her needs and be able to say them for her. What do you want, Grandma? And I would say it that way. People wouldn't turn around in the grocery store.
Did she have an acting background?
No, she didn't. But I like to say that this is what started me in interpretation. And then I didn't do it for, many years, but that's how I started.
That's awesome. And then, and then after that, you actually started professionally more or less a few years before me, I think.
Yeah, actually, the funny thing is I was always interested in interpretation, but at the time that I was a student, you couldn't study interpretation without doing translation first. For 4 years, I went to Ottawa U, and translation just wasn't really for me. It creates a lot of anxiety, actually. I get really bogged down in the details of punctuation and things, and so I dropped out of translation, and then I went into journalism. So actually, I finished in journalism, but never worked as a journalist. I wanted to be a foreign correspondent and never did it. And then I was working as a tour guide. And that's when I started interpreting again, because I worked as a tour guide for people who didn't speak the language of the country we were visiting. So that's how my interest got reinitiated.
What countries were you?
Well, countries. Yeah, just 2, Canada and the US.
Okay.
But I work mainly with people from either France or Spain.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So you were basically able to combine your love for journalism, translation, and tour guide, and those 3 combined equal interpretation.
Well, I like communication and traveling, so yeah, that would be the common link between all of that.
I think it's the common link between most interpreters.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that was kind of how we met too, because we traveled so much together for many, many years until COVID hit. And then you had a really interesting job during COVID with RDI. So do you want to talk a bit about that?
Sure. It's actually not with RDI, although it was thanks to RDI. There is a full-time simultaneous interpreter who does RDI from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Our good colleague, Jean Bisping, he's an amazing interpreter. You should definitely invite him. He's a really, really fun, interesting guy. And but of course, he only does 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. So whenever RDI needs other interpreters, I was on that short list of interpreters that they hired. So I mainly worked in the evenings or the weekends or whenever Jean needed a day off or for whatever reason couldn't make it he was sick or whatever. And so the Radio-Canada building and CBC building, they're in the same building in Montreal. And when COVID hit, well, I don't need to tell you this, but we all lost all of our contracts. And I had a very full schedule, mainly out of town, and that it disappeared entirely. And the person who gives me the Radio-Canada contract said, hey, I've been called, but they would want you to work at CBC. And I'm like, CBC? Oh. And I didn't quite understand it at the time because I didn't know that there's a CBC Montréal who specifically caters to English-speaking Quebecers. And this made me really nervous because I'm not used to going towards English when I work for the television network. And I thought, okay, no, but I'll do it. And it was a challenge. I was excited about it. And I thought, well, nobody that I know will listen because my English-speaking friends don't live in Quebec. So they're not going to listen to, the press conferences given by the Quebec government. And my Quebec friends speak French, so they're not going to listen to the English either. That's what I thought when I started. So I went in on the first day and I could tell that everybody was really nervous and I was really on edge because nobody had anything better to do than watch the conferences at the time. And I really wanted to do a good job. And apparently they liked me. So they called me back and it was 7 days a week. And they called me back for next day and then they booked me for a whole week. And then they eventually just said, hey, can you just keep coming until there's no need for it anymore. So I ended up doing that for a few months.
Yeah, you were the English voice of the news in Quebec for a long time. Well, whereas we were all scrambling to see what we're going to do because all of our contracts were canceled.
I was very, very thankful for it. And I wasn't the only one actually in the building because there's also Radio-Canada Manitoba, for example, that caters to the French community of Manitoba. And so there were a lot of other interpreters doing the other press conferences for the other provinces as well. So it wasn't just me. And of course, Jean Bisping was still working for RDI. So there was actually a community of interpreters there, although we had to say hello from very far away. And yeah.
Yeah. Do you recognize them now that they're not wearing masks? Or?
Yes.
Did you think at that time that your interpretation had to be slightly different? For instance, you thought, oh, I need to have a reassuring voice in order to calm everybody down, or
no, there was no room in my mind for that at all. And I've been told that I have a calm voice. I did not feel calm, I can tell you that. But there were so many other things that I was worried about, being able to keep up with the speed. And there's a particularity when you work at the television network that doesn't necessarily exist in conference interpretation, but you have to be as close to the speakers as possible because otherwise on television, it just doesn't fit if you are speaking too far after the person who is expressing themselves. You really have to keep on,
so barely no décalage.
Barely no décalage. You're almost trying to anticipate what they're saying, which is not something that in conference interpreting is as well accepted. So I was a lot more worried about that, and especially about getting the right terms because our press conference in Quebec came a couple of hours after the federal press conference, and the federal government kept talking about new programs and new ways of helping out the population. But I had to look for the official way of saying it in the other language because there always is. But since it had just been created, sometimes it was more difficult to find. So I was a lot more worried about that. I was not worried about my voice at all. I just hoped that it wasn't too annoying to listen to. But for the rest, there was like no room in my mind for that particular concern.
And how did you deal with people like, say, politicians that you were not keen on, let's say, to put it politely?
Oh, well, I think that one of the good things about our job is particularly when it comes to those kinds of things. I mean, how often do we have to translate things we don't necessarily agree with, like constantly? But once again, there's no room in our minds for that. At the time, we're so concerned about making sure that the meaning gets across and everything like that, that there's no room for I don't like this person or I don't agree with this, Later, you'll think about it, sure. But at the time, you're just really concentrating on, I have to do a good job here. I want to render this as truly as possible.
I remember the logo press conferences a lot. I think that in Quebec, at least, Ontario must have been Doug Ford. But in Quebec, it was all about Legault and all of the back and forth and the different decisions. But one of the, I don't know if it's a made up quote, but over time, uh, sometimes when I'm laughing with my friends, the joke is more like, hey, c'est pas le temps là, d'aller visiter grand-maman. Like Legault was very sometimes, I think that's when he was trying to comfort people. He was kind of jolly and at the same time kind of try to sound friendly, and it
And
didn't.
reassuring.
Yeah, reassuring, with that kind of bon vivant sort of voice. Did you try to mimic that, or did you strictly keep it to the message?
I think I do mimic it, not necessarily because I want
Do you
to, but
mimic
because,
Legault? Really?
well, I think I've been told that I'm a more emotional interpreter, in that if somebody's emotional, I'm emotional too. I try to render the emotion, like my voice never really stays flat if somebody is whatever, getting angry or is really happy. I tend to like get on the same kind of wavelength that they're on. And so without, once again, this was not a conscious decision, but you try to render the tone as well as what they're saying. Another thing about such a fast paced press conference with 3 different voices is that's one of the only ways for the people listening to the interpretation to be able to tell them apart if they're not actually watching. Some people watched on Facebook, but some people listened on the radio. I don't have the time to say, and now Legault speaks, and now, Aruba speaks, or now whatever. So I think that when people can hear from your own tone of voice that the speaker has changed, that the style of expressing themselves has changed, I think that this is helpful as well. But once again, this is not necessarily something that you consciously make a decision that you're going to do. I think it's something that you naturally do because your job is to make sure that people understand. And that is one of the ways for them to understand.
Cool.
That's a very good tip.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, to change your voice, because we do, like, for instance, union meetings or whatever, and there is a lot of back and forth between speakers. So to change your tone or the way you speak in order to create that illusion of dialogue is actually a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, I think so as well.
I would say that's one of the things that stands out in comparison to AI too. Like AI will be so far behind because it has to do a speech translation of the English into the other language, or the French into the other language. So like it already takes that much time to do that. Plus, it's a monotone voice throughout, so you're never gonna. It's hard to keep up with say a round table or a group discussion, that kind of thing. Like
Yeah, especially when you throw accents into the whole thing as well.
yeah, absolutely. Did you do any English accents or no?
No, I didn't. If I did, I'm not aware of it.
It was subconsciously.
Yes.
Cool.
And how long did you, because you in the beginning, I thought you said that you did it for a few, maybe 4 months or something. So, but COVID
Yeah.
lasted a lot longer than that, no?
It did, but the press conferences didn't. At one point, they realized, and also there wasn't that much more like new things to say, right? So at the beginning, the press conference was on a daily basis. And then when they realized that it was going to last more than 2 weeks, they started, cutting down to 6 times a week. And even then people complained because this was the anchor. And also this was like the rallying point, it's what people were doing to try to make sense of a situation that was really difficult to make sense of. So at first it was 7 days a week. And after a while it became 7, and then it became 5, and then it became 3. And we were like 4 months into it, I think, at this stage. And there were more and more conferences happening, and interpreters were starting to work again. And after, I think, 6 months, more or less,
Yeah.
I thought, okay, people are going to forget that I exist. They're going to think that I only work here, and this is eventually going to disappear, and I'm not going to have anything else. So that's when I started asking to be replaced so that I could say yes to other contracts, so that I needn't have worried now that we know how much work there was, because there was so much catching up to do. But at the time, I was really concerned that I would fall off people's radar. And
Yeah. And then the virtual interpretation kind of saved our butts.
yes, it did.
So then you went back on the market. Because we started to work again.
Yes. Yeah, we started to work again, and we all had the growing pains of getting used to conference interpretation and having better bandwidth and better equipment. I think that, for a while it was impossible to buy good quality microphones anywhere just because there was so much demand for it. But the funny thing is, I told you that I had tried studying in translation and realized it wasn't for me. At one point, must have been about 10 years ago, I wanted to be able to work remotely. And I thought, hey, maybe I could try again with translation and see whether, this time around I could do it and then I could work and travel at the same time. My goodness, I don't know how translators do it. They have my entire admiration because I have done translation. I used to work at the courthouse and I did a lot of the technical ballistics reports, autopsy reports, bodily fluid reports, and those things. But those are really easy to translate in that there's only one way of saying, well, the spleen weighed 289 grams. The stomach was filled with whatever.
I didn't even know there was translation of all of that.
Yeah, depending on what language the trial is taking place in, right? And so going from that to something that is actually crafted to be more artistic, the way many written things are, I would wake up at night because I wanted to take a sentence and separate it in two, and then the next night I would wake up and put it back together with a comma, and I'm like, I can't do this. I'm too stressed out. So for me, being able to do Zoom was like a dream come true in that even though most things take place in person now, there's still some work in Zoom, which allows me to sometimes, not be necessarily at home, but to be elsewhere and still be able to work.
Well, I think that Brian and I both did some translation before becoming interpreters. And I think that interpreters that have a background in translation give a different performance than those who have not studied translation, right?
Yeah. I would think so.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. Yeah, because we build a lexicon of things that aren't in your everyday life. Like it's one thing to be bilingual; it's another one to specialize in a certain field. And when you're given that opportunity with translation, and you can take your time, even though there are deadlines, you can still look for the mot juste, and you can really change a sentence around. And whereas if you go straight into interpretation, maybe you lose a bit of that.
Well, in my case, I think that translation was a way to polish my French and my English.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to grow up bilingual or trilingual. Carmen and I, we both share the three languages as we were growing up. Oh, Brian as well, of course. So all of us, the three of us, actually. Yeah, sorry, Brian. I was
all good.
leaving you out for a second. It's focusing a little bit too much on our.
My grandmother passed away a long, long time ago, so you don't have to. She'll forgive you for sure.
Thank you. Yeah. Gracias. But I think that we all grew up in multilingual environments, but from that step to become a professional interpreter, it's something different. And I think that a background in translation or having studied translation at university is a way it's a training for our mind.
It is. And I think that people who translate read a lot. And I think to be a good interpreter and a good translator, I'm sure, but you have to read a lot. And I think a lot of people neglect how important that is because it's through reading that you learn the beauty of a differently constructed sentence or the elegance of a new word. And if you don't read, you can't, expand on your vocabulary and on the way that you say things and on the way that you can render things. And even simple things like sometimes I listen to people on the radio and surprisingly enough, in French, the liaison has pretty much disappeared. And I think it's because people don't read enough. And so they don't know what the ending of a word is. And so they don't know what liaison to do, whether it's with a T or an S. And this thought came to me the other day and I'm like, yeah, we don't read enough as a society. And it's so important to.
Yeah. And I remember even with my kids, growing up, I would read to them a story in English and the same story in French. but the French version was so much more polished and I'm like, wow, I would not use that word as a 4-year-old reading The Little Mermaid, So
which is also really cool.
Yeah, so even at like children's books, it starts there and it just never stops. Yeah.
Your message is really important because on top of that, we hear, and it's probably true, that younger people don't read as much because there's just more ways to entertain yourself nowadays.
Yes.
But we have to keep, and I keep pushing on my own children, the necessity of reading. But it's just sometimes an uphill battle, I think.
It is, but I think there's always a way of finding something that people will find interesting,
Yeah.
And books are different worlds, so you just have to find the world that you want to visit.
Yeah, my son Keith, he's into video games, so we did a lot of books that were like reality television, virtual reality, like Ready Player One, Ready Player Two, and all those kinds of books. He loved all of it. So yeah, he still
That's nice.
he still quotes from from the book. So I'm excited that he was excited to read.
Give me
That's
some
great.
tips, Brian.
I know. I won't tell you about my 18-year-old.
Yeah, my nieces, I have 3 nieces, and my sister and brother-in-law have done such an amazing job of always making sure that they are surrounded by books. Like, to them, it's such a normal thing to always be surrounded by books that I remember at one point I was working at a hotel, probably for something for you, Brian, and my niece came over and spent the evening with me, and I took her to the pool downstairs, and then she slept over at the hotel. And the first thing she did when she came into the room was like, "Wow, beautiful room," and then, "Where are the books?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, where are the books?" So she opens up the drawers and finds the Bible.
They still have
It was
those
the
in
only book
hotel
in the
rooms?
room.
Oh my
She
God.
opens it up, and this was before she could read. She was like 5 or something like that. And then she's pretending to read, and I take a picture, send it to my sister. She's like, "You're reading Amalia the Bible?" She goes, "So she's looking for books?" It was the only book available. So, hey, I wanted to go back to something that you said and that I found really interesting about, it's not because you speak 2 or 3 languages. There's something that really struck with me when I started interpreting, and I started at the courthouse, as I was mentioning. When you went into the restroom for not the bathroom, but like the place where interpreters rested in between
Okay.
contracts, there was a big sign that said, "Thinking that you can be a translator or an interpreter because you speak 2 languages is like thinking you can be a pianist because you have 2 hands."
Oh.
And I love that because it really explains it. You have the basic tool. Now you have to work on it.
Yeah.
Now you have to learn the whole thing with the basic tools that are at your disposal. And that's all languages are. They're basic tool. It doesn't mean you can do the work. And I think that in a city like Montreal, where I live, people don't value it. They don't. So many people are bilingual or trilingual. Nobody gets impressed until you speak at least 5 languages. So they don't realize a lot of
Especially
them.
Montreal.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize how difficult what we do actually is. And I think that's one of the reasons that I like working in a place like where I am now, which is a smaller town in the United States. People really value what I do because they're impressed by it. And it's nice to work with those people as opposed to people who all think that they can do their job better than I could, that they could do my job better than I could. I mean,
and a lot of the people that are there come from cities that are very homogeneous in a way, so that everyone speaks English, everyone kind of looks and talks the same, and yeah, so it's yeah, I could see how like you would be more.
Yeah, you and I worked here for years.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
I'll call you exotic. I'll call me just different.
Well, what you're saying is so true, and I'll give an example. We're raising at home our teenage boys, and they're trilingual, and they think my job is easy. Oh, they're like, "Oh, your job is so easy. You just talk all day, and you go from French to English, English to French, and that's it. It's so simple." Because in their mind, they think that it's so easy to switch from one language to another. And then I had one of them sit next to me while I was doing one of my conferences a few weeks ago. And then after, I don't know, at the end of the day or something, of course, he didn't listen the whole day. But he came to me and says, "Oh, it's a lot harder than I thought. How do you do it? It's so fast, and I don't understand anything they're saying, and yada yada yada." And I'm like, finally, I got the respect that I deserve.
Yes, yes, and you do deserve it.
Yeah, Keith was.
That's great.
When during COVID, we have like a double desk in our office, one next to the other. So he was doing his homework and schooling while I was doing interpretation on Zoom. So he would always be like, "What the heck are you guys talking about?" But he learned.
I don't know either. I don't understand either.
Yeah, but he learned like not to like talk or interrupt or anything. Like just like I'm interpreting, you can't. It has to be silence, and if you need to say anything, you pass notes. So we were like kids at school passing notes to each other. Like
much more civilized than cats.
Yeah, no kidding. But but that was like for you. I know how much you love to travel, and COVID must have been so, in a way, debilitating because you're not used to staying.
Well, it was.
Oh, I forgot to ask. So, were you when you were working for RDI? You were on site.
I was on site. Yeah.
Right. Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
And the funny thing is, they made a video of me at one point because, and this is something. They would tell me, "Oh, by the way, CTV is asking for your feed," or whatever, CGAD, which is a radio station, is asking for your feed. And I'm like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know how many people are listening to me. I don't want to know the comments. I go in there, and in my mind, my mother is listening to me, and that's it. And my mother was listening to me, and she would say, "You did well. They spoke quickly," and that comforted me to know that I was translating, interpreting for her.
But so it's your mother.
It's my mom. Of course, she's not going to say I did a bad job, right? So it was very comforting. I kind of needed the comfort at the time. And also, I ran to work. So it was 3.5K. It wasn't very far. And it was kind of weird to take the metro at the time. I wasn't comfortable taking the metro. So I would just jog to work, and then I would jog back. But the problem with the jogging is that I had to take my computer. And I had to take my coffee because the coffee machines were closed over there. And I had left a bag of clothes and things like that. So I would just put on, something warm in case that I was wet because it'd been raining or because whatever, it was really hot and I'd been sweating, although that wasn't the case at the beginning. And when they did the video on me, they were so used to seeing me run in and out. And they had told me, "Listen, we don't see you, so it's okay if you're sweaty, if you're disheveled or whatever, as long as you do a good job." And I always showed up an hour before, so I was never, out of breath or anything like that. The day they did the video, they were waiting for me outside because they thought that I was going to come running, which I always did. But the week before, I had been on a radio interview for CBC. And they took a picture of me, disheveled, sweaty faced, wearing, workout clothes, and they put it on Instagram. And I'm like, okay, I'm not doing that again. So on that day, I decided to bike so that I could dress properly, wear makeup, and brush my hair. And they were waiting outside for me for a half hour. I felt so badly. I even offered, "We can do it tomorrow. I'll run in tomorrow." And they wanted to integrate that into the video. And they're like, no, it's okay. It's done now. So
is it the picture where it says "Meet the interpreter" behind the voice from? I have here. It's a CBC.
Short. Yeah, it's a short blurb. It's a 3-minute video that people. I didn't know, as I was saying, people were asking to know who I was. I think they were interested in all interpreters, especially the sign language interpreters. So they said, "Do you mind if we do a short video?" And I'm like, "Sure." So they did the short video, and that people were interested in that. And
I love that you say the 3.5 kilometer run is just a quick run, a very short run.
Well, but at the time I ran a lot more. So I would run back and forth 7K. And if that was a lot less than my training for the day, like say that day I was supposed to train 15, 18 kilometers, I would subtract 7 and go and run 10 or 11 kilometers.
Carmen's
and then do the 7 back and forth.
You would run 18 kilometers a day?
Sometimes, depending on if you were training for a marathon. Yeah.
Okay. Carmen's a marathon runner, so
not anymore. Actually, I did one last year, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to go to stick I'm going to go with half marathons. They're a lot more.
Welcome to the club.
Manageable.
I'm not running as much.
But to go back to the travel thing, the funny thing about COVID is that, I was forced to stop traveling as we all were, but it also opened up a door because during COVID, I learned to drive for the first time in my life.
It's easy. Nobody was on the road.
Yes. No, but you're right. This is how I managed to do it because I got used to people getting back on the road little by little. And that opened up new doors for me that I didn't have before. So I ended up buying myself a van, setting up a little work corner in there. So every once in a while, I actually work from Zoom
like
from
an
my
RV?
vehicle. Yeah.
Wow. So you became some sort of nomad interpreter?
Part-time nomad. Yeah. Yeah.
Part-time nomad, part-time Montrealer? Is that?
Yeah, that's how. So in the summer, when there's not very much, like right now, that's why I'm not home. I'm on a semi-road trip. I work partly in person, and then I go back to my vehicle and I drive to another town. And then if I have a contract, I make sure that I go into a place with really excellent Wi-Fi connection, and I do my contract there, and then I keep going. So,
could you get a Starlink?
I could get a Starlink. It would allow me to go to more remote areas. Right now, I just make sure that I am in a place with excellent Wi-Fi. Like if I have a contract the next day, I always make sure to choose a place the day before where I know that the connection is going to be good. And so far, I've had no problems, thank goodness. But
yeah, I've seen this van. It's incredible. It's got
you've been in it.
Yeah, it's got like solar panels, a kitchen, a shower, bed. Like it's really well done. Yeah.
How did you buy it used? Like tell me what's the story behind the van?
You're interested in the van?
Yeah, I'm interested in the van. It gives me ideas for the future. It gives me ideas for the future.
Well, so going back, I had a driver's license that I got through like the skin of my teeth a few years before. That's what allowed me to practice during COVID because you couldn't just, rent a car and practice if you didn't have a functioning license plate like license. And I have a lot of friends who have vans. I'll have a lot of friends who like the outdoors, the trail runners, climbers, whatever. And so van life was a thing in that group before it became a thing in society at large. So it was already something that I had dreamt of so much. But I was so scared of driving that I thought it'll never be for me. And then I learned to drive, greatly motivated by the fact that there was no transportation left between Montreal and Ottawa. My entire family's in Ottawa. I was alone in Montreal. And after COVID, I was
so they moved from Quebec City to Ottawa.
Yes, we all moved from Quebec City to Ottawa. And then I moved to Montreal, but I'm the only one there. And so I needed to see my family. I come from a very close family, and it had been months since I'd seen them. The border had been closed between Quebec and Ontario, if you remember. And when they opened it, there were no buses left, no trains, nothing. So I thought I have to learn to drive. So once I learned how to drive, I'm like, hey, maybe I could, I could do the van thing that I thought I was never going to be able to do on my own. So I did. And originally I wanted to buy a used vehicle, but there were none available because Amazon, apparently, this is what I heard, Amazon became so busy during COVID that they bought all the big vans so that they could do deliveries. So there was nothing left. So I was lucky to get the vehicle from somebody who had the same project as I did, but who desisted from the project. I designed how I wanted the interior to be. I had it done. And then I started traveling around.
And where did you go?
In a lot of different places. And I've been trying to combine it with in-person things like the contract that I'm doing here, which is a contract for Brian, and it's really cool. They fly me in because it's such an isolated place that they fly you in all the time. But they don't care where they fly me in from. So the first year I tested something. I drove to Halifax, left the van at the Halifax airport, flew here for a week, flew back, and then went to Newfoundland and Labrador and came back. Last year, I did the same thing. I drove here with the van, and then I drove to Denver, left the van at the Denver airport, came back for work, went back, visited Utah, Arizona, went back to Denver, came back here, went back, and then drove myself back here because I had like 5 weeks here over like a 2.5-month period. And right now I'm in the middle of doing that as well. So I was here 2 weeks ago, and when I left, I drove up to the Great Lakes, went all the way around Lake Superior.
Yeah.
I was supposed to fly back from Thunder Bay, but my flight was canceled because of the strike with Air Canada. And Brian saved my life by finding me a plane ticket in Duluth in Minnesota. So he said, just drive down there. It's a few hours. I drove down there, left the van, came back here for the week. And then going back to Duluth and then going through some of the national parks there through Ontario back home. So I'll be home in September sometime.
Do you keep a record or take pictures or have a blog or something?
Oh, do you take pictures?
It's so interesting.
I take pictures.
It's such an interesting story. I mean,
I regret you asking the question of pictures.
I do have pictures. I take a lot of pictures.
No, but to be honest with you, I mean, we hear so many interpreters out there who are saying, I'm stuck at home and we're always at home and we don't get to travel. But you took matters into your own hands. You said, you know what? We can work from everywhere, so might as well be everywhere.
Yes. And
this is incredible.
Really enjoying it. I am living like a life that I really, really
and you do
love,
you do photo albums, like yearly photo albums of everything that you've done too.
Yeah.
And I'm in some of those pictures from what
of course you are. I mean, the number of contracts we've wrote together. I have a picture of your son Keith on top of my van.
Oh yeah.
I don't think you went up. You were like scared of heights.
No,
or
I
something.
went up too. I was up there.
Did you go up?
Yeah.
I have a small. I like to call it a terrace, but it's not a terrace. It's just like a bunch of
rooftop
wood.
patio.
It's a rooftop patio, but it doesn't have sides. So when you're standing on the van, if you're at all scared of heights, well, yeah,
you can fall over.
You can fall over anyway.
It also has solar panels, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
But you can't step on those.
No. And from what I understand, you also got some of the technology to be able to do the interpretation from a technician, right?
So Global AV, which is a family-owned business, they are the ones that suggested things to me. So I thank them so much for everything that they did to help me. Abbas and Mohammed Musa, they're two brothers.
Yeah.
And they suggested what equipment I buy, an external router with a SIM card that I can change depending on the country that I'm in, with an antenna so that the reception is better. And I have a travel, professional microphone, which is the same one that I'm using today. And so I really got set up with professional grade stuff so that I could provide good sound. And I even have like a Jackery, which is like an external battery that I plug my router into, because the router actually makes a lot of noise and clients could hear it. So I bought that so that I could plug the router in that without having to plug it into my van. Because when I plug it into the electrical system of my van, the fan goes on to keep it cool, and that also makes noise. So, I worked out the kinks of the system, and now I have like excellent sound. As long as I'm not next to a church. Oh my God, I was next to a church once because it was in downtown in a small town. The reception was best. I finished my contract. Thank goodness. 3 seconds after, the bell started ringing. I'm like, oh my God, if that had happened during my contract. So I'm like, never again, not a church and not a fire hall.
But there's something I don't quite get. You can do the interpretation from your van, but where do you get the Wi-Fi?
Oh,
from your phone?
From my router. I have an external router that I bought.
Oh, but the external router has to connect to something.
It does. It connects to the antennas. The way that
you mean like you get some free Wi-Fi somewhere. So let's say you park next to a public library. Do you get the Wi-Fi from that public library and start interpreting?
No, the Wi-Fi is provided by the router. Don't ask me how it works. You will have to ask Abbas or Mohammed. Yeah. They made it work. It works.
Coming in a few weeks, I'm found an interpretation. Okay.
Yes,
this episode is brought to you by a family-owned AV company called Global AV. Shout out to Mohammed Abbas. They're great people. I love them.
No, I went there and I drove there with the van. And I mean, I've worked with them for years. They've always had to give me lifts everywhere because I didn't drive, So the fact that they saw me go into their studio with a huge vehicle and they're like, oh my God. So they visited it and they helped me with equipment. Say, and you're going to need this wire, you're going to need that. And it was great. It was a lot of fun.
So they're really, really excited to help you with this project.
Yeah, they were super excited to help me with it. And they'll be happy that I'm still using it and that I'm still enjoying it so much.
I bought a booth from him before when we used to do equipment with my old company. And that was a really cool booth. It was all like with magnets instead of Velcro, and like there were 4x4 squares instead of
It's
the long
solid.
panels. It's so good. Yeah.
With the darkened windows so that you don't feel like you're in an aquarium, and the places where you can hook your clothes instead of like having to put them under the table. Yeah, they think of everything.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Wow, I was just trying to picture that router that you were saying, and that maybe there's a SIM card in it. Maybe it gets the network from a Bell or Telus or whatever.
Yeah, I said Wi-Fi. Maybe it's not Wi-Fi. Maybe it's like 5G or something. But it's
Right.
but it's separate from my phone. I also always have my phone as a backup just in case. But as I said, so far I've been lucky. Things have worked out. Things that could have gone wrong went wrong, not at another time, like those bells, or like that one time that it was next to a fire hall, and suddenly the
The
firefighters
fire truck
went,
comes.
and the fire truck went by, and I'm like, that was during another interpreter's turn. So I've learned to avoid those specific buildings that can
Maybe
come up
schools
with
too
very
during
loud.
recess.
You know what? That's not as bothersome, because especially
Okay.
with the microphones that we have nowadays that are, they only capture the sound that's around the microphone itself,
Yeah.
not so much outside. But I mean, nothing can prevent you from capturing a fire truck
No,
or
that's what they're designed
bells.
for.
Yeah.
That's why I had to close my window.
There
Well,
you
there you
go.
go.
Yeah.
But
So,
yeah, no, I
so you took it to
highly
the
suggest that.
extreme, and what you're saying now is that found an interpretation can go on the road anytime, and
Yes.
all we need
Yeah.
is to go to Global AV, get ourselves hooked up with some good Wi-Fi, and away you go.
Yeah. And I mean, you could definitely do Starlink, but I knew that I didn't necessarily want to be interpreting from like a desert necessarily. I knew that I could time it with going back into town, because especially if I'm like the longest I've been gone, I think living in the van is like 2.5 months or something like that. At some point, you need to go back in town and just find a place where you can do your laundry, where, you can do that kind of thing. So I would just combine that with
Yeah,
a
because
contract.
you got to stay in camping grounds or things like that, right?
I do what they call boondocking mainly, which is staying in legal places, but that are free. So in the United States, it can be BLM lands, like Bureau of Land Management, which are like crown lands, and anybody's allowed to stay there for up to 2 weeks. They usually have minimal infrastructure, but I don't really need that much since I'm self-sufficient. I don't need to plug myself into anything or whatever. Or you can stay. Some municipalities encourage people to stay in their parks or all the Walmarts. I mean, it's not very romantic, but you can stay pretty much in all the Walmart parking lots if you want. And you can stay in campgrounds as well. But if you're gone for like 2 or 3 months and every campground is $40 a night, it adds up.
Yeah.
So,
Right. But at the same time, do sometimes people, and you know what's going on nowadays, do people confuse you with some people who are actually homeless and living in their car?
I don't think they could with my particular van.
Okay.
It's a nice van.
It's like, I mean, a lot of people live full time in their vans. I'm not quite
Right.
sure that I would enjoy it full time. I still have my place in Montreal. I'd have to get rid of too many things that I'm attached to if I were to live full time in my van. But I mean, it's a space, and if you're safe in it, and but I wouldn't want to. I mean, even just it gets really hot. That's
Yeah.
depending,
And
So
like you have like the back part of the van doesn't have windows too, so people like
no,
peek in to see if you're there or not.
yeah, and that was a choice. I purposely chose not to have very many windows. I sleep better when it's dark, and yeah,
What's the brand of the vehicle, if you don't mind me asking?
it's a Ford Transit 350.
Oh, okay, I
Yeah,
see.
it
At
looks like
first,
an
I thought it
Amazon
was an
delivery truck.
RV. I thought, at
No,
first I thought it was an RV, so that's how I pictured it. And now you're talking about the windowless. I thought maybe a Mercedes, those big
the
Mercedes trucks.
Sprinters, it looks like it. The Mercedes are a bit wider, and they're not quite as high as mine. Mine is narrower, it's higher. The Mercedes are also longer, but I took advantage of the fact that I'm small to take a smaller vehicle that I can park anywhere. Like the wheelbase of it fits into any regular car parking, so I can park anywhere.
Did you say you're small or the vehicle small?
I'm small. I'm not very
Okay.
tall.
Okay.
So the vehicle is smaller. So I made the bed smaller, for example. I can sleep sideways on it.
I can almost rest my chin on Carmen's head.
I'm not very tall.
See, that's the thing, by meeting online like this, we don't.
Yeah.
we don't
we're all
know.
the same height. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But this is awesome too for our show, just to show people who are listening that you don't have to be at home all the time. Like you don't have, you can
That
bring
is so true.
your job on the road, and all you need is the right connections, the right people, the right tools, and away you go.
And another thing is I see my family so much more now because I'll go to my mother's, and stay there for a week with her, and I'll just work from her place, And so to me, it's given me opportunities of, or even just earlier this year, I went to visit friends in Germany and stayed there for a month and work from there. So it's, as long as you organize yourself, I think that it can be freeing. But I also love working in person. It's so nice to see our colleagues. It's so nice we need that. So for me, the hybrid is working out really well. I feel that it gives me the best of both worlds that I really enjoy.
I think that your creativity led to a really, really awesome way to live the hybrid hybrid interpretation that we do now.
Oh yeah.
I think it's. In a way, it's inspiring.
Oh,
because we
let yourself get inspired. Then go buy that.
Really. Yeah,
they make big ones, big enough for 4 people.
Yeah. Well, because in the very beginning of the podcast, we have this in common, right? We all love traveling. Maybe different styles of traveling, but I think that most interpreters have that in common. And a lot of people
we're a
say,
restless bunch.
Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of people said, well, you know what? We're stuck at home. We don't get to meet each other as much. We don't travel as much, and we're not in the booth meeting other people. But listening to you, you found a really creative way of doing this. And you know what? I'm gonna call my bank tomorrow, and gonna stop the mortgage and buy a van instead.
You know what though?
Come to Guelph, pick me up.
Yeah. There was a lot of people bought vans, and now some of them are going back to flying in other places. And so I've been seeing a lot of vans for sale because I follow sites for whatever advice and things like that for people who are in their vans. And so I'm seeing them a lot. And so I think that you could find a very nice used van. So
previously
it won't break
enjoyed.
your bank. Previously enjoyed and already full of laughter and adventure.
That's right. Yeah, no, and I've heard a lot of colleagues too that like even during COVID they would since they were stuck somewhere, they would go somewhere nice and be stuck somewhere nice for 6 months. So that was another thing, and I'm sure some of them still do that now because it doesn't matter where we are now that we have online assignments. Yeah,
we're lucky that way. We're part of the privileged.
Yes,
absolutely. So on that note, we're going to conclude the podcast.
Yeah.
Well, that went by really quickly.
I know. Well, thank you so much for coming, Carmen. I know like you're super busy with an assignment that I put you on. But
I'm really glad it worked out.
Yeah.
And I love this podcast, but I didn't think that I had enough interesting things to say to add to it. I'm glad that you found it worthwhile. Yeah.
All right. So thank you very much for coming, Carmen,
Thank you.
Ryan, everyone. Again, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and we'll meet each other next time.
Sounds good.